Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. About a month ago, we added some modifications to the Tundra that are super helpful and convenient. And in this video, I'm just gonna kind of show you how that happened and talk a little bit about why. So, real quick, we're gonna talk about adding some DC power to the bed, as well as some slick little power under the back seat, inconspicuous dual battery setup behind the back seat, a few modifications under the hood, and a little bit of ham radio stuff. I'm here at Blaze Off-Road in Colorado, actually just wrapping up pretty much most at least, of my electrical system. So this truck, I'm gonna point the camera over at Mitchell here in a second and have the professional walkthrough. But we have swapped battery, added a power switch to control the lighting and some other stuff, actually kind of a hidden dual battery setup behind the seat, added a few things of power to include in the cab and back here, but there's actually a lot more to it, but I don't want to butcher anything, so I'm gonna have Mitchell go through. So Mitchell, Blaze Off-Road, why don't you tell us kind of what you do and whatever you feel like talking about?
Yeah. The most basic way to put it is that we plug stuff in and we help you guys plug stuff in. The more advanced way is that, the motorsports racing world essentially stole aerospace's technology and products to bring it down to motorsports racing. And we've essentially stolen that from the motorsports world and brought it down to a consumer level. So we use all of the highest grade materials and products that's from DR25 heat shrink, from Raycam to Molex connectors, TE connectivity products. Everything that we use is essentially as high a quality as you can possibly get. And so our main thing is designing products to help you guys do your own installs. Obviously we did mics here. It's a little bit more custom than what we used to do. But now most of our focus is developing kits for the Garmin Power Switch, S-Pod, harnesses, and all that, so that you can go online, buy the kit, and in your own garage over not even quite half a day anymore, throw the kit on, wire up your truck, and get your lights going. Super high quality, super high reliability, and just have everything be solid and reliable so that you don't have to worry about the complexities that wiring typically comes with. Nice.
Yeah, and so their main bread and butter is selling you a kit that combines some electrical components. They have brackets for the Tacoma, the Tundra, and stuff like that. So that's kind of their main thing. They do have a facility in Colorado, and they do wire occasionally. Yeah. So they do offer the service if you just need to talk to them to kind of walk through a build and you want to go through everything and get everything dialed. Costs some money, obviously. So, but if you got budget for it and you're interested in them doing the wiring, they do. But primarily, they're selling components to ship to you for you to do your own wiring and make your life easier there.
Yeah.
So we have implemented some of the components that they do sell for the Tundra, obviously, in here. So.
Yep. So this is our essentially plug and play. This is a prototype version of the bracket. We have a couple small modifications coming to this just to make it even easier to install. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with modifying, changing these brackets quarter inches at a time just to make stuff a little bit easier. So this bracket is available on the website, but the kit that this comes with, so obviously you have a single power switch here right now. You'll eventually add a second as you add more lights or need to control a compressor or anything like that. We have a lot of stuff going on under here, but this is because you do have a dual battery system. We'll kind of dive into that in a minute. But this kit here uses these two terminal fuses. And they come and power all of this stuff. And then obviously we have the SDHQ terminals on here. There's no way we'd be connecting all of this stuff to your factory terminals.
Yeah, so we actually, I guess at the first thing we did was swap out the battery.
Oh, yes, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
So we put a full throttle AGM in here. AGM batteries are incredible, but there are different levels to, just like anything, how AGM batteries are produced or made or any of that. The full throttle battery, they have a couple of proprietary things, all these buzzwords, but essentially it's more surface area, closer, thinner lead cells, more surface area, better battery, it's happier discharging higher amperage and charging at a quicker rate. So that's the benefit of the full throttle over not just other batteries, but other AGMs specifically.
Yeah, and they're a little more resilient than other batteries,
Yeah.
good for off-road use and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have a very thick case. We actually have some hollow ones up front that are just displays.
Okay.
And it's amazing to feel like how incredibly rigid and solid the case of these batteries are. So we've been thoroughly happy with them and very impressed.
So the battery it's the same size as the factory battery, just plops in there. So if you just needed to change a battery, you could change it to this battery.
Yep.
But since we were kind of going through the whole electrical system, we started fresh, upgraded the battery, added the terminals, the brackets, and all that stuff. So I just wanted to start at the base there before we started trying to do something to the factory battery and then rip it all out and stuff.
Yeah, so obviously if you have all of this electrical stuff going on, and keep in mind, this truck is gonna be more than most people will go with. So you'll have solar, you already have a winch, you have a handful of lights, and the second battery in the rear with accessory power off of that. So obviously, if you already have a bracket like this on, it's pretty easy to go and change your battery. But if you plan on really adding stuff to your truck, you're gonna need to do the battery now for your own convenience, like Mike said, so.
Cool. So new battery, and then we got the SDHQ terminals on there, and then the panel which you sell as well.
Yep. So these are what the SDHQ terminals look like. They also come with a cable. Toyota went with a pretty interesting terminal design here with the sensor on it, the BMS or battery management system sensor. So SDHQ has actually done what they did on originally the Raptors. They did it with those as well. A lot of the Ford vehicles have a similar sensor. So they take this billet block here and it mounts down here on the inner fender with a nice fat, like 2 or 0 gauge cable going to it. So a lot of the grounds connect down there out of the way. The only ones we're running up here are the big one going to that, and then the winch always goes directly to the battery. So that's what these 2 big cables are here.
Cool. So yeah, winch cables coming straight up. This is a 12K winch. Terminals and then terminal fuses.
Yep.
And why, so this was kind of new. I've done a lot of wiring, but never, always kind of ghetto driveway wiring.
Yeah.
And never really factored in, like, if I get into an accident or cables get pinched in that kind of environment. But you like to do with all your builds terminal fuses.
Yeah, and the main reason for that is safety above all else. They first came into play on 3rd gen Tacomas and 5th gen 4Runners, where switching systems that we were using had an inline MIDI fuse. If you've bought any switching system, even the Garmin, it comes with that cable built, or that fuse built into the cable. And on the Tacomas, that happened to land like directly on the battery tie down, to where a couple customers who were off-roading pretty hard could arc it out and pop the fuse. Thankfully, it was on the fused side. And I remember these things exist in the marine world. They're super popular. It's an MRBF fuse, which is actually marine rated battery fuse is what that acronym stands for. And we started implementing those just as a safety factor. You don't want anything arcing out. And when you look at the cable that we've got, 6 gauge, 4 gauge, 2 gauge cable, can carry hundreds of amps before it melts through. Actually, probably over 1,000 amps before the cable itself actually acts as a fuse. And in that time, it's going to heat and melt everything around it. So the way that you run a cable is important, the way it's sheathed is important, but there's very little you can do about actually getting in an accident. And all of us are choosing to do a very inherently dangerous thing with off-roading, right? We go out in the snow, we go on the edges of cliffs, we do stuff like that, and we hope and pray nothing will ever happen. But should it happen by fault of our own or another driver on the road or whatever, if you crush that power cable in your inner fender or your cross member here, anything like that, you're looking at a few seconds of thousands of volts melting through anything it's touching. It's a full short to the battery, and it's not a good situation. So we really like these terminal fuses because they're fused right here at the battery. It's not fused down here. It's not fused. There's no portion of unfused cable coming off of these. So that's why we're a big fan of those.
That's nice. Yeah, and I had never used these actually in anything that I've ever done. So that's kind of a nice little extra layer of safety. So this is the bracket that Blaze makes for the Garmin Power Switch specifically. It's actually again, this is a prototype, so the final bracket will change a little bit, but has two places, so you could put two power switches. I just have the single. I don't have a ton of lighting going on. Power switch is nice because you can control that from your phone or CarPlay. So big CarPlay screen in a lot of modern vehicles like the Tundra, you can just control stuff through your native screen. And one advantage is you don't have to pass anything through the firewall technically.
Yeah,
now we have run stuff into the cab for the second battery and stuff, but technically if all you're doing is a power switch, you don't need to run any wires into the cab. So that's nice.
And one of the cool things about power switch, a lot of people's first, and all of our honestly gut reaction is, oh, there's no buttons inside the cab. Not really a fan of that. We have an article on our website debating the pros and cons of both ways of that, but you can have two physical inputs. So like the new Tacoma has upfitters. We suspect the new 4Runner probably will as well. And in future years, hopefully these do also. So it's very common on the new Tacoma now and on Raptors and Broncos and Jeeps that have those factory upfitter or aux switches built in to just wire those directly to your two inputs here. You can also use, like on Mike's, we're gonna tie his high beams into that most likely as well. And so anytime that receives 12 volt power on the app itself, you can program it so that any of the six switches come on.
Yeah, and it's not completely unique to the power switch, but there are basically two input cables there that depending on when they receive power, you can program through the app what happens. So for instance, if you want to say when my high beams kick on, all my lights kick on, or when some other action happens, my door lights go on, some other action. So you can program those actions within the power switch.
Yeah, a popular one is the bed lights. So when you open the door, the bed lights come on trucks. You can make it turn on your rock lights.
Okay.
So
nice. Yeah, I didn't do any rock lights on this build, but maybe in the future. So wiring we got coming in this, winch, lights, stuff like that, obviously. So I have a few lights in the bumper primarily. So we got the new KC light bar with the
backlighting's pretty sick. I like that it's a ring.
Rings, yeah, kind of the halos. Pretty sick on there. So some of these inputs are switched separately. Actually just got here, so we got to go through some of these. Yeah, those covers are sometimes a pain.
Those things are tight. There you go. So you got backlighting on those too.
We got backlighting going on here. These are actually the SAE compatible. So these have a dual input to where they're kind of a lower power, nice cutoff SAE fog, and then a full power FlexAir 3 light as well. So some interesting stuff you can do with a lot of the more modern lights that have like multiple inputs, so lights and backlights or different dual outputs out of the same light that you can do some stuff with. We also added some solar connections up under here, so some MC4s. So I can hook a solar panel on. I don't currently have anything like a solar panel on the hood, though I probably will add one.
Yeah. So Cascadia will be coming out with a solar panel for these trucks, and we're very excited about it because they have been incredible on every vehicle we've put them on. It's awesome having a solar panel on the hood because you can leave your fridge running and not think about it. You can leave, in your case, your radio on if you want to walk away or something and not think about it. So it's definitely nice and very convenient.
Yeah, so for now, if I have a solar blanket or something, which I actually do, I'll plug that in if I want to kind of keep the system charged up. But that is all going to a Red Arc BCDC 40 that we have in the back. That we'll get to. I don't know, anything else up here?
I think that's about it. There's expandability. We have 4 fuses here for whatever. In your case, we're not going to use them just because all your stuff's running off of the rear battery. But expandability to add another power switch, your solar, so.
Yeah, so basically this setup, in addition to the terminal fuses, we have just essentially a bus bar here. So this is stuff if I want constant power or I need to add a manual switch something somewhere. This is all running off of the starter battery. Like Mitchell said, not using anything. All this stuff is going to be powered by the Garmin power switch, so light bars and whatnot. And then we have a separate kind of system that all of that is running off of the second battery that's actually behind the back seat. So I like this, a little dirty, don't mind me, but you can't see anything going on really. Everything is hidden. Up here, I forgot to even talk about it, I have actually dual antennas. So this is gonna be for the VHF, UHF ham radio, and on the other side, I have another antenna that's gonna be used for my HF. So those are two separate radios with two separate antennas. And so under here, if you can tell, lighting's kind of bad, but basically I added 2 cigarette lighters and then 2 Anderson power pole connectors down there. Everything is nice and hidden, so you wouldn't even see it. There we go. Sorry, let me just come in here. So this is in the back seat, so under the seat, so out of sight. So we have the dual cigarette lighter, so if I want to plug a fridge in or whatever, or if I needed USBs. I like cigarette lighter ports because they have multiple functionality. If you want to put a USB-C PD or USB-A charger, or dual or triple charger, you can just plug it into here. So anyway, put 2 of those, and then this is a dual Anderson power pole here, and that's what I'm going to be plugging radios into. So what I started talking about is we could have added some stuff here, but then if I have passengers or bags or whatever, then these cables might not be able to plug in, or they might get kicked or whatever. So I opted to just put them here under the seat, kind of, again, it's not, I don't know that it looks factory, because it's a weird place to put factory things, because OEM manufacturers don't think smartly, intelligently. They don't really think how you're gonna use stuff. But for me, this makes a ton of sense. And then I'm gonna have at least 1, maybe 2 radios under here. I haven't mounted those yet, but that's the Yaesu FTM 500. So anyway, this power is coming from the second battery, which is hidden. So I didn't really lose any underseat storage. I just cleared everything out of there. So all the underseat storage is still good. And now what we added is behind the seat here. So yeah, I'll let you kind of walk through what we got going on back here. Oh, real quick, for me, I nerd out, I measure things, I want perfect fits. So this is a 50 amp hour battery. I'll link all this stuff down below in the video description as well, that fit just perfectly nested in between. There's a couple little humps and bumps and stuff, so it fits perfectly in this tray, like it was made for it. So that was kind of the basis of this panel. I was like, I'm gonna put this battery, I'm gonna put it here. This is the room we have to work with.
Yeah, what they don't see on camera is there's a little notch over here that your factory jack handle sits inside of. This battery is quite literally pressed against both sides of the plastic paneling. So when he says it fits perfect, I mean, I feel like you had to wiggle it down in there, because it is so perfect. Yeah, a literal perfect fit in kind of this little area that we had for it. So I brought this battery in, we sized out what we could fit in this spot, in this small little footprint, and Mitchell actually designed a panel that fit the spot perfect, that had accommodations for all the stuff we wanted to add. Yeah, Mike essentially texted me and said, hey, this is how much room you have to work with to do what we talked about doing. And I was like, okay, I think we can actually make that work. So we did unique stuff, like made the bolt that holds this on the same as the bolt going, into the panel nut and the plastic back there. So same with over here, the mounting hole. So this is a custom panel. It's not something we really do much more in shop. However, it's something we have every capability of doing. And so for this application, we went and designed this panel to kind of fit all of his very specific needs. So we've got a Red Arc BCDC 1240D. The D means that it's a solar, it's dual input, charges at 40 amps. These things are awesome, we love them. I have a 50 amp going on my truck. We have a ton of them going on customer vehicles. We make more and more products supporting those, because Red Arc is an incredible company.
So yeah, if you don't know, Red Arc, they're very big in the world of kind of off-road and automotive charging. They do other stuff as well, but this is one of their bread and butter items. They have it in different amperage. The 40 is the 40 amp. They have a 25. They have a 50. They probably have some others. And the somewhat unique thing about it is that it handles charge both off of the main battery / alternator of the vehicle and solar input out of just one unit. So it smartly switches between the two. So I don't need a separate MPPT charger and a separate like alternator charger. It's all handled through one unit.
Yeah, those things are also ruggedized in the sense that they are waterproof and dust proof to a certain rating. I don't have it memorized, but they're definitely good for under the hood. They're fine with that. The only time they run into issues, I think, is under 0 degrees Fahrenheit or so. You start to have charge issues, but
yeah, but batteries usually can't even
that,
charge that cold. So a lot of batteries, especially lithiums, have specific charge temperature ranges. So that is the charge controller essentially for the battery. And then we got this little guy here.
Yeah, so that's your battery monitor. That's a new product they just released. The Red Vision system and app that they have is killer. They have it on their Manager 30 system. Everybody loves it, but that system is pretty pricey. It's like well over $1,000. You can get into the $2,000 range if you do the complete system. So they came up with this guy as a more entry-level solution to use that app and that technology to monitor the battery. So that'll tell you your state of charge. It'll learn the battery. The negative power for the battery is only going through this. And then you have a little sensor down here. That's what that other thing is. You have a little sensor down there that plugs in up here. Just something of note, the only downfall to this thing is it is not waterproof. It cannot go under the hood of a vehicle. You obviously have that cap on the Diamondback, so it can go in your bed, but it's not waterproof. That's the only thing to note about it, but it monitors the current flow, the charge state, and all of that for you very easily. So
nice. So yeah, it kind of works in conjunction, has a separate set of functionality versus the BCDC. We didn't mention it. We do have another terminal fuse right here. And then that's all gone through the Safety Hub 150. So the smart battery monitor has a little Bluetooth connectivity, and this is the app. It's pretty no nonsense, straightforward. Shows the power going out or in, current voltage, temperature of the battery, a percentage of the charge, and then an estimation on how much time remaining either to a full charge or to depletion. So I just have my ham radio on right now, just in RX mode. I'm not transmitting on it, so it's using 0.4 amps. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward and super convenient to be able to see the charge rate and temperature especially I'm interested in.
Yep, so the Safety Hub 150, another product developed essentially for the marine industry. Great product, super high quality. It gives you...
Just gotta watch your fingernails.
Yeah, this thing is a nail destroyer. It gives you 6 ATO, ATC fuses over here, and then 4 MIDI fuses over here, along with 3 ground studs, and it's 6 smaller grounds there. So if you were to add an inverter, for example, this would be an incredible place to do it, because these ATC fuses or MIDI fuses, are great for higher amperage loads.
Yeah, so this truck, again, this is a 50 amp hour LifePO4 battery. Some people do crazy battery systems because they're running induction cooktops and all kinds of stuff. This is more, again, kind of a daily driver setup. So my primary concern was adding a little bit of extra power, some cigarette lighter ports for, again, fridges or something that I want to put in here, because the only cigarette lighter style port in the Tundras anyway is actually this one that's all the way up here in the dash. So if you want to plug a fridge in or anything, it's kind of a pain. So anyway, I got two of those now, and then again, the radios. So I don't actually have any AC. I don't have any inverters or anything. Again, the system is expandable. I could add that if I really feel like I want to in the future, though the Tundras do have AC output. So if I needed to charge something while I was driving, I could. It has AC power back here. It has AC power in the bed. So from my system, I was like, I'm primarily focused on DC. So
we tend to design these systems, like when customers are putting this type of system in, it's strictly a like convenience and peace of mind sake. So when Mike's at expos or on trips or even, long-term camping, not long-term, but like, far away road trips where you're doing a little bit of camping, with how much he travels, this thing is just, it has the peace of mind to leave your fridge running, to leave your radio on, to do whatever, to be able to leave your backlighting on at shows, to show off the lights, all of that kind of stuff. Or even, at camp, leave lights on if a customer wants to wire it that way. This smaller type setup is for the convenience and peace of mind of being able to run your stuff with the vehicle off while you're working or doing other stuff. So this is a great setup to throw like a Starlink on or something like that. So
yeah, so kind of catered specifically to what I was going for, and just a nice, tight little package. So we got the wires from under the hood running under the car, and then for anyone that cares, up through, did you guys go up through this grommet under here, I think?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so there's a few kind of factory grommet holes around the car. So I ran the antenna cables a little bit separate through different grommets to get them where they needed to go to try to separate that power out. And then we ran from in where we were just at back here. So the Tundras have an AC port, well, some of them, if you spec for them, an AC port here, but no DC power in the bed natively. So I wanted some DC power in the bed for miscellaneous stuff. So this is a Blue Sea Systems separately switched, so you can turn it on and off with this switch right here. But I do have, again, 2 power poles back here, which are always on. So this switch will control the cigarette lighter and the USB plugs back here. Reason I wanted power in the bed, camping, fridges back here, those kinds of things. But also, if you've been watching, I'm nerding out in the world of radios a little more. So if I go out and want to do some radio stuff and set some radios on the tailgate, I could plug them in here. But Anderson power poles, there's, XT60s, there's a few that are kind of will handle the same function. If I have a rooftop tent or something on top of the bed, I can make a cable that goes from power pole and then powers lights and, things inside of the tent as well with a single cable. So if I want to run a heated blanket or something, I can make a specialized cable that goes from Anderson to, dual cigarette lighters or something that I can throw up in there. So kind of just a versatile plug in the back there.
Yeah, one of the other things that we did back here is the Anderson power pole is actually on its own fuse. So speaking of nerding out on ham stuff, you don't really want to wire a bunch of stuff with your ham radio. So we did wire the 2 Anderson, well 4 technically, but the 2 Anderson ports, the 4 plugs, to their own fuse, independent of each other. So kind of help mitigate any sort of interference so you can charge all your stuff off of these other ports and still run your radio with that extra 1% of precision without worrying about interference through the power. So
yep, very cool. And then these obviously all have their kind of waterproof caps on them, and the switch is waterproof. So kind of a slightly ruggedized DC power system in the back here that's just kind of tucked up and out of the way. So that way if I'm loading stuff in here, unless it's really tall, I'm still going to be able to have stuff plugged in up high. So
yeah, this is actually more or less, minus the Andersons, this is actually a kit that we sell on the website too. These panels are made by Blue Sea Systems. They're super high quality, awesome product. You can buy them pretty much anywhere, but we sell kits that come with cables that run up to your factory battery.
Okay.
And either connect to a fuse on one of our kits, or you can choose to do a like MIDI inline fuse, or a terminal fuse as well if you don't have anything else that's aftermarket. So
Okay.
this is something that's incredibly easy for anybody to do themselves. You basically just mark, the gasket on the back will tell you where you need to be cut out. You mark your 2 holes, use hole saws and cut between, and you've got the hole to punch through your bed. So this is something that
nice. And does it, by default, does it come with 2 cigarette plugs and a USB or?
Yes, there's a couple options. There's one that only has what we'll call a 2-port. So it's a switch and 2 ports. That's a dual USB and a cigarette lighter.
Okay.
And then the other option is just like this. It's gonna have 4 total USBs and 1 cigarette lighter, or 1 cigarette lighter, 2 USB ports. I'm calling them 2 because there's
doubles in there. Yeah.
Yep. So it'll have a 1 cigarette, a dual, and then a voltage gauge. So those are your 3 options. It's like a compact 2, extra USBs, or a voltage gauge.
Okay, cool. So if you want to add power to the bed in an easy way possible, basically you cut that out. They give you the harness that'll run power all the way up. So mine's a little custom. I'm running power to the second battery in the back seat. So you can do the same thing without a second battery and run that off of your main battery.
You could technically throw Andersons in there too if you wanted to. All of those things just unscrew and pop out.
Gotcha.
The only thing is it wouldn't be isolated because you need a second harness for that. But nonetheless, they can move them around any way that you want. So.
And then we did Andersons, I believe, on 40 amp also. So the Andersons have potential to be a much higher draw than the USBs or the cigarette lighters. It's typically around like a 10 amp is what they'll put in there. So we kind of allocated for maximum power there. But that's essentially the electrical wiring system. I wanted it to be very clean, very straightforward, not overly complicated to where I didn't do pretty much any of this other than running a few cables and drilling a couple holes. But I wanted to know, have the knowledge if a fuse goes out, if something's not working right, be able to track it down if I'm out on the trail or whatever. So relatively straightforward.
Yeah, all of our harnesses come pre-labeled. So even if you buy a ditch light harness set, you basically go on the website, full-size vehicle, ditch lights, and I'm running this plug on my lighter, that plug. And so you just select those options and it comes labeled. It'll say ditch, it'll say ground, it'll say backlighting. So it makes it super easy to DIY. And like Mike said, the main reason that we did it for him was all the little custom tweaking stuff, but all of the stuff is pretty DIY friendly and it's not as scary as you think when you do it in little bits. So.
Yeah. So again, stuff catered to the DIYer, my application a little custom, but not that custom, honestly. The main custom thing was the panel, and then just putting things where I really wanted to put them. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Anyway, this is wrapping up. We may add a little more to it. Again, the system, I'm only using a couple of the inputs in the power switch, so I kind of have some room to expand. Again, if you haven't been following the build, the truck doesn't even have 1,000 miles on it yet. So there's more that I'll do to it. So this is, I don't know, I would say we're past phase 1 kind of, but still in the infancy as I'm kind of dialing in exactly what I want to do. If I want to swap lights or add more, like I don't have rock lights, I'll probably put those on at some point. So system expandable, but really kind of cleverly dialed in. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, blazeoffroad.com.
Yeah, blazeoffroad.com.
Blazeoffroad.com, Blaze Offroad on the social medias. You guys are doing a little bit of YouTube stuff.
Trying to,
here and there.
Yeah, I think you know how much work YouTube can be.
It's a bit of a pain.
We're doing a little bit more of the how-to stuff and technical. So if people want to see like, oh, I have a 24 Tacoma. We literally just posted that video. They can see how to install this on that. We have one coming for this truck. SDHQ terminals, we have that installed for this truck online already. So it's just Blaze Offroad everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, all that.
Cool. Yeah, so check them out. Again, stuff kind of catered to the DIY, but if you do have a special project you want to work on, they're not opposed to it. It's just, that's not their main focus, I guess.
We want to help as many of you as possible. And we truly believe that if you can change your own battery, you can install half this stuff. So
yeah, it's relatively simple. It's harder to do clean. Like getting those stuff really clean is where
Just
it kind of
copy
takes
us.
a little more expertise.
Lots of zip ties.
Anyway, that's it. Either that's it for the video, and thanks for watching, or I'll cut over to kind of talk about some radio stuff now, but I'm sure at this point in the video, you know what I'm doing. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Check them out on the socials and their website. Get subscribed to the channel, all that YouTube stuff, and until next time. All right, so I'm gonna show you a couple more things. One is this Red Arc solar blanket, a 240 watt solar blanket that is super compact. Here's a Tundra tailgate for reference. And then what stemmed a lot of the electrical system, second battery, is actually nerding out on radios like I've talked about here and there on the channel. I'll do a whole video soon where I'm really getting into radio gear, but here's kind of a portable kit that has everything I need minus power. So I have an Anderson port, can set it on the tailgate, plug it in here, plug it into a laptop, and do a bunch of HF radio communication stuff. The main thing I'm using on kind of the day-to-day is a VHF UHF radio. This is the Yaesu FTM 500. So I have this just on a little ram ball mount inside of here. Sorry, it's too dark, so it's having trouble focusing. And then that is run back under the back seat here. So this is the kind of brains of the unit on a little tray that's just screwed in here. So super secure, has room for the fan, the antenna wire, and the power. So this power is going across, plugging into that Anderson over here. The antenna is going down, underneath, through this channel, popping out, popping up under into that grommet, and then running the rest of the way to this here. Again, I'll get more into specs and details on all of this, but just wanted to show you in the electrical video. So that's a little hood clamp mount with a Comet antenna. And then over here, I have a different mount that I wanted to try out with a different antenna. That's an NMO antenna. This is a UHF. This is for the HF radio. This is the ATAS 120. Now this isn't the most secure thing, and it is a big antenna, so kind of got to do more testing there. Similarly, that antenna wire is run down under, up into a grommet, and then this wire I just kind of have loose back here. The reason for that is I'm not going to be driving, doing HF stuff a whole lot. I just don't really care. A lot of this is for use on digital and intel gathering paired with a laptop. So I'll be kind of set up somewhere a lot of times when I'm doing that. But again, ham radio, at least the HF side of things, is a relatively new hobby for me. So I'll explore that, and I just wanted some flexibility to run the two different antennas because for those that don't know, the VHF, UHF stuff, which you're maybe more familiar, it's a little more similar to GMRS radio, uses different frequencies and therefore a different antenna than HF. So you'll need two different antennas to do VHF, UHF versus HF, and that's why I have two antennas. The solar blanket actually conveniently is about the perfect size to just fit back here under the seat, but then unfolds to be essentially 12 little squares, adding up to 240 watts of power. It's on the ground here just to kind of show you it, but like at Expo or if you were out camping or whatever, you would take this and you could either run a cable out. Say you're parked in the shade because you want to stay cool, you can run this cable out and put this out in the sun, or if you're parked in the sun, the roof is a great spot for it, or if you got stuff up on the roof, then the windshield or the hood are also great spots, or if you got a flat spot, bed cover, something like that, you could put it there. Always best to angle your solar panels at the sun and then also clean them. Mine are super dirty from using it at Overland Expo, so I should spray that off and get it nice and clean because every bit of dust is lowering your output really. So anyway, that's about it for the electrical system. So let me know if you have any questions and I will do my best to answer, and I'll link to all the relevant stuff, including Blaze Offroad, down in the video description below. All right, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.